All right, testing one, testing one. Just want to make sure I can be heard. Again, I did open the stream a little bit early. I'm not going to be officially starting until 6 p.m. Pacific time, but I just want to make sure this thing is all set. So I'm going to quickly check to see if the stream is working and all that. So just give me one moment, please. All right. So I'm just doing some adjustments. So I'm still getting the thing set up. So testing one, testing one. See if I can be heard. I want to make sure this mic is working. Right. So hold on, let me get this there. I know you're hearing a bit of an echo. All right, I'm right in front of the computer right now. So yeah, I'm like very few times I've actually been streaming on my PC. I'm currently using my computer to stream, so bear with me. I'm gonna try my best. I think I've only done a stream outside of PlayStation, I think once before. I am thinking of doing some single player games on the PC. I believe I bought them. Yeah, I have bought them. So I'm thinking of streaming some single player games there, and I'm currently using the Twitch Twitch Studio, because Twitch Studio has like Twitch now has its own app and all that, so I'm using that to help myself stream. And again, I'm not 100% used to this, so I might run into some obstacle courses here and there, but I'm gonna try my best. I'm as I said, all my streams like other one, literally one other stream, and this current stream I'm having are the only two streams where I have not relied on the PlayStation streaming software, which is very convenient. I have some good news though before I officially start. So I would say this is good news. Actually, this is probably closer to possible good news because I'm still not 100% sure if this is going to work. But I have like recently ordered some new streaming equipment. It's kind of small, but it should at least give me access to streaming PlayStation 2 and PlayStation games. Um, they're like, I think a couple of converters in there, I think. And then you plug it into the computer, and then I think Twitch Studio should let me stream it there. Again, I'm not sure if this is gonna work, but I think it's worth a shot. I can always use it for something else if it won't work on the stream. So, but yeah, that's the good news is that I it does look like I might be able to stream some PS2 and PS1 games because there are and I mean a lot of retro games that I grew up playing, and I would definitely like streaming it. The problem, though, is that, as I said, up until possibly now, even now, it's just possible I haven't had the software to do it. So, now again, this will probably only be like the PS1 and the PS2 era games. PlayStation 3, I don't think the devices I ordered are going to work on a PlayStation 3. I think PlayStation 3 to stream on using that's going to be a little bit more complicated, maybe even a lot more complicated. So that I don't know, but a lot of PS3 games that I want to stream like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, I could easily get it on like PC and I could just stream it there. So I figured why go through that trouble? I think there's literally only like one game, I think, is Grand Theft Auto 4 that I might want to stream eventually, and that's I think the only game that's locked on the PlayStation. Maybe Metal Gear Solid 4. I like Metal Gear Solid 4, but I'm not sure if I have enough of a passion to actually, stream it and all that, especially go through all that uh um all those complications just to stream on PS3. But even though my Grand Theft Auto 4, there are all these remasters. I can just use my PS4, PS5 to stream, which is pretty easy to do. And I think I was hoping Sly Cooper, but again, I I have the remaster on PS3, but I also have the original games on PS2, so I could just use my PS2 if these devices I bought are gonna work. I could just stream it on the PS2. So point is, PS and again, it's just not enough. Like, this is not enough motivation to get me to stream because again, majority of games, if not most of the games, I can like just stream on. I could stream on another platform, but it's actually six p.m. Pacific time. I've actually gone past the starting time, so I think it's now officially starts. So, oh, by the way, phone with me right now. I'm not seeing this right now, so if anyone wants to participate in this, please say so in the Twitch chat. Again, I'm using the studio. I'll try to catch it or not. But nobody really. I did get any messages saying that they want to join the stream, so I'm assuming it's going to be just me. So yeah, there's also big fighting emphasis. So a lot of people aren't at home right now. I was actually going to do a different subject. This is going to be more closer to a pessimistic thing. Again, I'm not being before I start this, I want to make it very clear. I am not being pessimistic or anything. I'm not ranting or anything. I'm just saying that these particular things I miss, but I'm not I'm not going to make fun of it like the current way games are nowadays. In fact, I respect what people want to do. I'm just saying that I personally miss these old features. So moving on, number five. So one of the things I really miss is when there was uh no live service, no live service games, and no micro transactions. In fact, I'll let me rephrase this. Um, when a grind to unlock and DLC more cost. I know no microtransaction. I'll put this in parentheses. I don't think this part's necessary. So this is just to clear it up for people who are not 100% sure what I'm saying. So back in like the 1980s, I'm saying the 1980s because that's like when video games like really at a turning point. We had like Super Mario and all that. So back in those days, and I don't think I have to go to the internet to show any examples. I think it'd be okay if I just straight up explain what was going on. So back in the old days, when we had games like Galaga, Pac-Man, Mario, those games, of course, there was like no online stuff and all that, and then there were arcades and all that. But to see unlock a level, you'd have to grind to unlock it. And then fast forward to the 1990s, it was this kind of the same thing. If you wanted, like for example, Tekken, some of the Tekken games, right? Early Tekken games, you'd have to grind. You have to a certain character, all the characters. There's like no paid DLC. There might have been like maybe one or two on the computer, maybe one or two live service games, even back in the 90s. But again, they were back then. They were extremely far, a few and far between. My point, and then even the early 2000s, same thing. But then we go into the mid 2000s. This is the PlayStation and the Xbox 360 era. So kind of fast forward. So we had like the Super Nintendo days, 1980s, and then we had the PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64 days, well, the PS2 days, as I said, with better graphics. But then the way video games worked is it kind of started to make a change. Again, before all this was really just focused on local single player games. I'm sorry, local multiplayer games. Maybe a little bit of online, in the early single player games and offline multiplayer. But then we come to the mid 2000s, and that's when things start to make a change. But to be honest, I was perfectly okay with DLC. For those of you who don't know what DLC stands for, DLC stands for downloadable content. That is stuff where you use the internet, use your Xbox or PlayStation accounts or Nintendo Wii account, go on the internet, you download something, a game that you already to download that extra content, which to me is perfectly okay. I understand that video games, especially video games, started becoming a little bit more expensive back then. Companies had to figure out a way to make a profit. So the you know when companies you see the companies like needed to figure out a way more to make a profit, right? So they added in DLC, which was totally okay. And I understand that. I think in some ways the DLC is actually better in some ways than grinding to unlock an extra story mode, like an extra content. Because let's face it, even back in those days, not everybody, in fact, few people compared to all the people who bought the game were actually to unlock all that stuff. So some of the extra content would never really be known. It would kind of be forgotten about, especially with internet not really being a big thing back then. in the early 2000s. But then you have the DLC, you just have to pay to unlock it, and you don't have to go through all that hard work to unlock the DLC. And then that way, people, the developers, right, who worked hard, first of all, they could make a little bit more money, and secondly, their DLC content would get perfectly okay with the downloadable content in the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 games. But then, again, this is the 1980s to 2013. Now, fast forward to the I would say the mid 2010s. So 2013 is when this started to happen. But then we started, during the PS3 and Xbox 360 era, there were multiplayer games, but they weren't really like they didn't really dominate single player games. Well, maybe they did, but the point is that they didn't like dominate the way they do nowadays. I mean, single player games and DLC, they were still like very popular. But then I would say starting in 2013, the PS4 era, and especially like 2014 and beyond, we started getting live service games like, games like Destiny. I believe that was the same company that made the original Halo games, but that was like a live service game where all to live service games are multiplayer games that are supposed to last for years. As the game goes on, the developers keep adding in more stuff to it, and then you have to pay to access more stuff. You see, and this is actually like, you know many developers, Destiny was the game that first brought attention to this because developers were actually making way more money with this live service multiplayer game. It lasts for years, and even to this day, a lot of people still play Destiny 2 now, and people are still playing it. And I believe that I could be wrong, but I believe that there is still some being added. Is that it brought a lot of players. You see, they kept wanting to experience more multiplayer. They kept wanting to pay what we call microtransactions. Microtransactions are stuff we have to pay to buy extra content, like mini content, like a particular weapon or a particular customization item, a particular costume for a character. See, that was a thing. It's like this. Many people would already have to pay for a game, but then they have to spend all this extra money. So I think maybe three, maybe even four times the amount, and this could be understating it too. I think some people maybe spent 10 times the amount of money to buy all these new weapons, and these were live service and microtransactions. And the worst part about live service games and microtransactions is that they would kind of ruin the fun of the multiplayer game. It's like people who could not afford to pay for like extremely good weapons, they would kind of be shut out because they would be then overpowered by the people who could afford those weapons, and it would, the fun would be ruined. So that's something to be honest, I didn't really like. Like a perfect example of a live service game, live service microtransactions is Modern Warfare Remastered. So Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the original, it was considered a legend, and I could definitely see why. Because the multiplayer game is so great; it really revolutionized multiplayer shooting games. And then we had Modern Warfare Remastered released back in 2016, right? And the first 3 months of the multiplayer was great. It was terrific. I never played the original Warfare, Modern Warfare 2, but I never played the original. Sorry, didn't mean to say Horizon. I've never played the original Modern Warfare 1. Then I played Modern Warfare Remastered. It was great. The first 3 months were absolutely terrific. I liked it a lot. But then because microtransactions started, then added in these super overpowered weapons where you would either have to grind like crazy, you have to spend like what, 100 hours grinding to be able to afford that weapon, or either that or pay money to get those weapons. And of course, not everybody can afford these kind of things. And then these weapons are overpowered, so the fun completely got ruined from the game. And you see, microtransactions for like skins and customization, just cosmetics, perfectly fine. But to make weapons overpowered, having to pay extra money to be more powerful in the game just so you can win, a lot of people like to call that pay to win. In my opinion, that's kind of that's not cool. Like I'm just gonna be straight up honest. I'm not gonna show because people have fun, and being that stuff ruins the fun. It's like you have to pay more money just to have fun, and none of this did in 2013 and before. So that's one thing I really don't like about modern games. The reason why I put it number five, if this was back in, I would say, if this was 2016 or 2017 or 2018, this would no doubt be number one. But the reason why I've kept it at number five is because companies have gotten better. This stuff still exists, have like gotten better with this. It's still an issue, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was back in the mid 2010s. So I think I've explained that enough. So I think I could move on to number four. By the way, anyone in the Twitch chat have any questions or comments? I don't see anything in the chat room, so I'm going to assume it's a no. So I'm going to go to the number four. So four is this is what I don't like when what I actually meant. Reviews and speculation were not paid attention to. So So this is what I don't like. You see, back in the old days, back when I was a kid, there were like really no reviews. I mean, sure, reviews existed, but people didn't really pay attention to video games reviewed. It's like people were just, were willing to buy and give it a shot. But nowadays, people look at reviews like there's like reviews like AGN, GameStop, which again, it can keep you from buying a bad game, no doubt about it. But I do believe though that sometimes like the people can disagree with reviews. But at the end of the day, a review is really just an opinion. So I think that there are a lot of popular people didn't pay attention to the reviews and they and be like, oh great. But now there are some like super like for example, Watch Dogs 1. In my opinion, Watch Dogs 1 was a terrific game, an absolute legendary game. But it got such horrible reviews and people bought into the reviews. And you know why it got bad reviews? Is because the graphics were downgraded. Ubisoft it was a very bad decision to downgrade the graphics after showing PlayStation 6 graphics on a PlayStation 4 game, which of course you can't do. But then they had to downgrade the graphics, of course, and a lot of people were saying, "Oh, they lied to us, screw this game." But it's a shame because the game itself is a real gem. And that's the thing about reviews is that the reviews brushed a lot of people away from the game. I do believe Watch Dogs easily could have been just as popular as Assassin's Creed, and I don't even know if they'll even be in nowadays. So, and another thing I don't like is speculation. Well, what's going to happen and all that. Instead of just simply waiting for the game, I keep seeing so many videos like, you know, um, I don't want to like, rant on like YouTubers, but I'm just gonna say like in general, I've seen a lot of YouTubers like for Grand Theft Auto 6. I'll just keep it broad and so I don't want to be like toxic at all. But for Grand Theft Auto 6, everybody knows this. I'm not gossiping because this is like a universal thing. Everybody knows this is going on. But these people kept speculating, oh, where it's going to be and all that, and they would just keep trying to get views and views on the channel. And one of the actors from Grand Theft Auto 5, one of the actors actually criticized the channel. So, you know, I just think like again, I don't hate this. Like, people have to like find a way to get attention, but I do miss the time when, when this stuff, when people just kind of see, oh, wait and see what happens. Then the game comes out, oh, great. But then people speculate something is going to be great, and it turns out it's not great. They'd be not as great as it could have been. They'd be like, oh, it's horrible. But back in the old days, you see, that this kind of happened in the mid 2000s. Back in the early 2000s, 1990s, people would just wait. People would just want to have fun. People would grab the game, right? Speculation, no reviews, and they'd be like, "Oh, this game is great." See, there would be no hard expectations or anything. The games would not be in danger of being disappointing because you see, the thing about disappointing games is that a lot of people who find games disappointing because of speculation or predictions, it's like it creates the illusion of it being bad when the game itself is actually really good. So I think I've talked enough about number four, but moving on to number three. And number three is how is, is how influence single player games, in fact, games and even video games in general launched. All right. So I think you can see that. All right. So when it comes to how like single player games and even video games in general launch back in the old days, like back in like in the 1980s. So I'll start from the 1980s again. So the 1980s, like it had Donkey Kong, Pac-Man, Galaga, and there were games like being released times a year, and there was just a frequent amount of games pouring in. And a lot of these games would actually be really great quality. Go back to the 1990s, same thing. We had like Tekken, you know, Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Tekken Tag Tournament. Think about that. That's a lot of games within one didn't even launch, I think, until 1994. I mean, look at Fighter 3. And we have Medal of Honor too. The Medal of Honor game, a lot of people call that the game, the first person shooter before Call of Duty, which is like so many, yeah, like Medal of Honor games like that, and then goes from the 90s and then the 2000s. We still got like, so if you go to the Tekken Tag 1, the console version, we had Tekken Tag 1, we had Tekken 4, we had Tekken 5. There's so many games. And of course, Grand Theft Auto, right? We have Grand Theft Auto Vice City in the early 2000s, Grand Theft Auto, and then oh, mid 2000s, we have Grand Theft Auto 4. And then let's even go to Fallout. We have Fallout 1, Fallout 2. We have like Fallout 3 in 2008, Fallout New Vegas in 2010, and Elder Scrolls. Of course, so many, I can go on and on and on about this, but I don't want to waste too much time. Games being released back then, and this was before like affected this service games. Let's take a look at Grand Theft Auto 5 for it. Perfect Grand Theft Auto 5 is just an absolute perfect example. So Grand Theft Auto 5, so we had Grand Theft Auto 4 back in 2008, right? And then Grand Theft Auto 5 was another 5. It was definitely worth the wait. It was actually a great game. I thought it was a little bit silly, to be honest. But I still thought the gameplay itself was like really great. Like a lot of really great. So I really then Grand Theft Auto Online happened, right? There was number 5. I think it's the time to say it now. So then live service happened, right? Live service then pretty much like another single player game, Grand Theft Auto game happening within the decade. Because when they added Grand Theft Auto Online, they added in the microtransactions. When they added in that microtransaction, like the shark cards, they're called the shark cards. So, to summarize what was going on is that in Grand Theft Auto Online there was something called a shark cards where you could pay real life money to buy a Grand Theft Auto currency, like the Grand Theft Auto currency, and use those currency to buy stuff in the game, like weapons, vehicles, like tanks, helicopters. I shouldn't say most, I would say at least a majority of them were not willing to grind, so they kept buying shark. And the developers with all this money, why go through all the work releasing all these single player games, when we can just collect all that money? Yes. So consequently though, there hasn't really been a Grand Theft Auto game. I mean, look, a Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to be coming out next year. I mean, that's going to be literally 12 years. And yes, we did get Red Dead Redemption 2. Red Dead Redemption is basically a Wild West version of Grand Theft Auto to, summarize what it is. But even look Red Dead Redemption 2. Look at how long you had to wait. Like Red Dead Redemption 1, it came out in, I think, 2010, right? Like sometime in 2010. Unfortunately, I can't quite remember. But Red Dead Redemption 1 came out then. And then Red Dead Redemption 2 came out in 2018. That's 8 years. 8-year gap. Can you believe that? Compare that to Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas. Look, 2-year. Then look at also the early Resident Evil games. Almost a game being released once a year. You get what I'm saying. And of course, Skyrim. Like the Scrolls game we got was released back in 2011 itself. So, you know, get what I'm trying to say is that and the worst part about this is that it doesn't look like we're having another Elder Scrolls game anytime soon. We had Elder Scrolls 6 announced, back in 2018, I think? And nothing, no new news since. It's been 6 years, right? Nothing new. Nothing. I mean, can you believe this? And then when you go to the live, so of course there's also live service. There's Elder Scrolls Online where they just keep adding in live service stuff. Microtransaction, pay to get stuff. It's multiplayer game. And I understand. Listen, I understand. The company, because of live service, the majority of video, maybe even most of video game players nowadays, they pay attention to multiplayer games because there aren't that many single player games out there. Not that many people pay attention to them. So companies still have to figure out, make it very clear is that sure, you may not, if you release single player games, you may not make as much money. You may not be able to make as much money. But you can still make a good amount of money. Just look at Resident Evil as like one of the few single player games out there that's going old school. Resident Evil tried to put in some live service games, but all failed miserably. Failed miserably. I mean, it really did. Like all the games flopped completely. Like, I think the last one was Umbrella Corps that flopped, and then Single-player games have been super successful. Like you have Resident Evil 7, 2016, right? No, yeah, it was late 2016. And then you have, let's see what else. Resident Evil 2 remake. In fact, it was essentially a 2 year wait because Resident Evil 7, I remember, was released in, I think, no, 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 it wasn't even 2016. No, it was 2017. What am I saying? It was released in January of 2017. And then Resident Evil 2 remake, only a 2 year gap, right? And then you have which was released a year after that. And then a year later, Resident Evil Village, Resident Evil 8 Village. And then a year after that, let's see, I think 2 years after that, you get Resident Evil 4 remake. And all of those games have such great reviews. Even Resident Evil 3 is considered the black sheep of those games, but even that, it's still much better off than many, many of the live service and games, many of the single player games, maybe maybe of the bad single player games. My point is that, Resident Evil is a perfect example of how you can still make really great quality, good profit, but you still be extremely successful. If you look at Ghost of Tsushima, Ghost of Tsushima was like, so for those of you saying, "Oh, Resident Evil is an OG series, people always play it no matter what." You have a point there, but look at Ghost of Tsushima. Look at how great of a job Sucker Punch did at developing the game. They did such an amazing job. And yet, it's a new series. It wasn't even that well known. I mean, they made the Sly Cooper series, which was fairly popular, but not many people know that the same company that made Sly Cooper made Ghost of Tsushima, or the same that made Infamous. Not many people know that. So Ghost of Tsushima was essentially done by, quote, a new company, quote unquote. But yet, it was still massively successful. The company definitely made a huge profit because it was such a great single player game with great storytelling. See, God of War, Spider-Man, those games, yeah, successful because they're from really popular franchises. But Ghost of Tsushima was practically